Hello and welcome to the Sci-AI podcast. This is episode number 34. Today, my guest is Denis Rothman again. This is round number 2 with him. Denis is an author in AI and one of the legends of NLP, machine learning, and AI. He is a speaker and has authored many books in AI. Just recently, he has written The Transformers and his second edition on it. Okay, so welcome to the podcast again, Denis.
Okay, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. Love to have you here again. What is your opinion of the new parameterization in AI? I've heard recently that in artificial intelligence, you've talked about in our last episode about parameters, so many parameters that we can have. Now, I think Microsoft or Google, I don't know who, is building the new parameterization, which makes it even more faster. Can you talk about it?
Yes, so the parameters, when you're creating an expert system, for example, in a company, because there are still many expert systems in AI, you write all the rules down. You say, you rule 1, rule 2, and if this applies, then I'll go to rule 4. Okay, so you have rules. But then there are situations, especially in natural language processing or in imaging, where you can't write all the rules because you'd have to write millions of rules. So that's where these parameters come in. So you can say that, for example, like one word can have several parameters, and depending on the context, there'll be another set of parameters, and on another context, another set. And you easily reach, when you have many words, you easily reach millions, billions, and now you can go over 1 trillion parameters. So once you're at that level, that's a lot of parameters, and it takes a lot of parallel processing to do it, whether you transformers or not. So the new approach now, which is very it's a good innovation, is what we call sparse modeling. So let's say you have a first stage where the system is going to tokenize and embed the words, and then there's going to be positional embedding in a transformer, and then you have this attention where the words are just looking at the relationship between each other, like the goes with the cat is on the rug goes with the cat's on the rug. So you find all these relationships and you have these huge parameters. But then there's another layer which has become much smarter, where you say, why don't I do some sparse modeling? Maybe I don't need all those parameters once I'm in this layer. Maybe I can just take a few, and then maybe I can take the best ones. It's the expert parameters. So now you're tremendously reducing the number of parameters in the feed-forward network. Now, that's one way. Now that's really diminishing the number of parameters. But then there's another way, is to split. Already when you do transformers, you split the processing on different processors, on different GPUs, for example, or TPUs if you're on Google. So you split them. So you say, oh, well, that goes faster. Yes, but up to now, we were giving a lot of data to each of these processors. We're giving weights, and now we've found ways to optimize it where we don't. So they become separate. So we're not overloading the system. So now it's even going faster. And then that's horizontal. Now we have found other ways, is to train all the layers at the same time in parallel too. So now you have, so yes, it's improving a lot, and it's parameter management with sparse modeling and speeding up the training with some new ideas.
Fantastic. Great answer. You must have heard about the Google's new AI model called the PALM AI, PALM. Can you talk about it and what exactly can it achieve? Because it looks like an amazing technology built by the Google developers, but what exactly can it achieve?
It goes back to my previous question, your previous answer. It means today, when a transformer is just like a box of Legos. you
Hmm.
know, okay, and you take them and you build them the way you want. So you get a new name every week. Every week you're going to get a new model. The difference where Google research is going is just what I just explained. They're going to sparse modeling. They're going to optimizing the way the processors at deep speed. Well, Microsoft is working on that too, so they can speed it up. And another thing, so then you have the speeding up, and then there's a third dimension that Google has come up with is optimizing the hardware, where we find that we don't need so much precision in the floating points for many of the calculations. So we can have domain-specific supercomputers. You can build a supercomputer where you say, well, no, for these calculations, let's use less floating points. So it'll go much faster in a cheaper way. So you put it all together, we're optimizing. You can see that we're using sparse modeling, which is the basis of most of Google research now. We're using different ways of training, not overloading the processors. And now we're optimizing the computers by saying we don't need all that precision for this part, maybe for another part. So you can do mixed hybrid calculations with a lot of floating points and less. When you put all that together, you can get to trillion parameter models. But they will be training exactly like maybe 50 billion parameters because you're not using everything all the time. You're optimizing.
Although they claim that it can scale to 550 something billion parameters for breakthrough performance. Do you think that
It'll go much further. Here's the image. Everyone's saying we have 80 billion to 100 billion neurons. But the truth is, those are the neurons. How many connections? Now take those 180 billion parameters and neurons and make all these connections. You're going to reach trillions and trillions of parameters in our brain. And we need this power in computers. So 500 billion isn't a lot. We need more. I would say we'll be in the trillions because we can now optimize what we're doing with sparse modeling, domain-specific supercomputers, the way training in parallel and real parallel, optimizing, zero redundancy and things like that. So I think they'll be much bigger. This is just the beginning. We're in the beginning here.
Amazing. How to then write algorithms or create models that can save these unused parameters? Like, isn't it a hell lot of waste of resources and efforts when we are not able to have them use all the parameters?
They use all the parameters, but not in each situation. See what I mean? Like you're saying, when to use the parameters. You feed that into the transformer. It goes through the transformer and it says, I don't need all the parameters to answer his question, so I'll use those. They're doing like in a brain. And then another question will use another set of these sparse modeled parameters. So for each problem, they'll use a different set. It uses a different set of sparse models, exactly like you speak several languages. But when you're speaking to me, you just speak one language. So you're not using it. But in another situation, you use it. So you're sparse modeling. It's no use for you to try to translate everything you're telling me now in every language you know to understand what I'm saying. It's exactly the same thing. You're just focusing on one language and optimizing. That's what we're doing. But we use all the parameters, but in different contexts.
So it's more like a repository. You use the parameters where it is needed and then optimize the AI's performance.
Yeah, it's like, let's say you're in a house, okay? You're in a house. And it's dark. You're in Sweden, and now we're in winter. It's dark almost all day, okay?
Right.
So you need all the lights in your house, but you don't need all the lights at the same time because when you go to the bathroom, you have a light, go to the living room, go to your room. You don't keep all the lights on in every single room of your house, every light. So imagine all these light bulbs are the parameters, and you just have these light them up when you need them. That's the image you need to keep in mind. Imagine a house with all the light bulbs, and you just light them up when you need them. And that's how these new models are working and optimizing, which means I could have 10 trillion light bulbs, but I'll be just lighting the ones up that I need when I'm working, so I'll go extremely fast.
Great explanation. So then it is the PALM AI is also called the Pathways Language Model. That's why PALM.
The
why
pathways.
Is it called like pathways?
Yes.
Okay.
You're in it. The pathways.
Yeah.
You're going into different pathways.
Is it possible that AI algorithms can create consciousness and hence become more like humans, but without flesh.
Okay, I'll ask you a question. Let's say you go outside and you pick up a rock. When will it become conscious in your mind? Talking about a lot of silicon, we're talking about circuits, we're talking about parameters. There's no intelligence in there. It's artificial. It's like your calculator. When the first scientific calculators looked like miracles, but there's no intelligence in there. It's because we have a tendency to project consciences. You can say the same thing like when we were children, we were looking at puppets, and when we were children, we thought they were really alive, they were talking to us. Or when you watch a movie, you think that it's real for the time you're watching it. And so while you're watching this actor, you think he's really doing it. But no, it's just fiction. So we're just simulating. There is no intelligence in there. It's machine intelligence. Machine intelligence is very different from human intelligence. It's a pack of calculations. And you can even create a robot that looks like a human. You can do anything you want, but inside it won't have conscience.
And when I talk to a lot of experts about this and read a little bit about it, they are of the opinion that consciousness in us came because of the reason that we were almost like animals. We started as apes, but we become conscious when we started interacting with patterns and then started interacting with each other, with the nature, and that the language brought consciousness in us.
Okay? It's like saying, "Oh, I solved the problem of God, no problem." It's like you can hear someone say, "God doesn't exist." I'm just telling you that. Okay, humanity doesn't have to think about it anymore, no problem. This is ridiculous because we don't know where we come from. Why are we born? What are we doing here? What's going to happen to us after we die? These are questions that mankind has been asking. We've been asking ourselves this question since we exist, for maybe 1 million years. When we see a child die or someone in the family, we're saying, what's going on? We don't know. So anyone that pretends he knows has solved a problem that no human has solved in 1 million years. And there's been 80 billion of us, or 100 billion. And there's 7 billion people on this planet, and many people believe that God did it, or some form of spiritual or supernatural. Some don't. No one can prove anything. So anyone that comes up and says, "Oh, I've solved the problem. We were apes, and then language came." But how did language come? Where did it come from? Where did it come? Can they tell you how we got to language? Why did we get to language? Through interactions? Then why don't chimpanzees have language? They speak all the time. You go to see chimpanzees, they're always chattering among themselves. Why did they develop language? Why did we develop language? Why did we develop? We don't know. And at one point, it's very important for a human being to be humble, because when you get COVID and you're in a hospital and you're sitting there with the doctors around you, you're saying, "No, I'm not so sure about what I was thinking. Please, if you exist up there, save my life." Everything goes away. It's very comfortable in a living room. But if you're in an accident on a road and you hit someone, you say, "Oh, please, if there's someone up there, please save this person. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. But if there is one, please help me now." So everything's nice in a living room, but no one knows. It's a question of personal belief. And anyone that pretends that machines are going to have consciousness, or they know what consciousness is, I think they have a psychological problem. They may be megalomaniac. Maybe they need to see a doctor. You send them to a doctor.
Then, good point. But then, are you then saying that we will never be able to achieve artificial general intelligence, which is actually more like human-like, and then it would have the general intelligence?
That's the big mistake all these people are making all the time. Of course, we're going to economic artificial general intelligence. Economic.
Right.
That means that you can replace tasks that don't require consciousness. Accounting, predictions of stock markets, 99% of what a human being does in a company does not require consciousness. It's just repetition. So of course, economic artificial general intelligence is already here. If you take foundation models like GPT-3, they can do hundreds of tasks, but they can't think like they don't think, they're doing tasks. It's like saying, now I have a car, and with this car I can go anywhere, so this car has consciousness. It's just a tool. So anyone that mixes up, so economic artificial general intelligence does not imply consciousness. It implies the ability to do many tasks in a company, for example. Just a lot of tasks, because no human being can do all the tasks that exist. You can't be a doctor, a lawyer. So it doesn't make even sense to speak about that. Let's do everything. No human being can do everything anyway. So why would a machine do it? So in certain situations, you'll have economic or artificial general intelligence, but there's no consciousness in there. Consciousness is something very personal. It's something that appears in your personal life. It's personal. People can't talk about that. If you go up to someone, a Muslim or a Christian or a Hinduist, and you say, "Oh, I'll tell you why you have consciousness." Person going to say, you need to sit down and pray. You're not humble. I think you're off track. Maybe you should go, no matter what religion, maybe you should go talk to the person, because I think you're having a mental problem here. We don't know. We don't know. And we have to accept that we don't know, and that we might never know. We're not intelligent. We just have enough intelligence to do what we're doing. But we're not that intelligent at all, because we don't even know why we're here, what we're doing, where we came from. What's the Big Bang? Now you have astrophysicists say, no, it didn't start with the Big Bang, because matter always transforms. You can't. But if matter always transforms, how could there be a Big Bang? If you believe in the Big Bang, then you believe in the creation of the universe. So these are problems that you have to be humble. You can't go on and speak about consciousness in computer science. You speak about consciousness in philosophy and religion, and you leave it there. You use economic, artificial general intelligence, say, I have a model that can do a lot of tasks, like a super calculator, and it's pretty general. It's nice. But we can't go further. We have to be humble.
Do you think that we will never be able to achieve that kind of intelligence in building these algorithms that all these great companies are building, that one day we cannot have that kind of super intelligence?
It's machine intelligence. Machine intelligence is not human intelligence. Like, let's say you go somewhere in Africa and you see a lion. A lion has a lot of intelligence. If I take all the weapons from a human being and he's just sitting there in a t-shirt and shorts in a jungle, and he meets a lion, this lion's going to say, you're not a very smart thing there, because how did I catch you? Now I'm going to eat you. So we don't have that. We're not that intelligent. Animals have intelligence in their environment. We have intelligence from our environment. And no human beings are the same. We take both of us. We sound so intelligent in this podcast. We take the two of us, and now, bam, you send us right into the middle of the Sahara Desert with Bedouins. Bedouins say, okay, get on the camel here, since you're so smart, and then go find the water hole. Because if you don't find the water hole by tomorrow, we'll all die. And they say, well, how can I find a water hole? They say, what use are you to me? I'm not going to even feed you. I'm not going to give you water. You're useless. But you're so intelligent. You can find a solution. You can call Elon Musk. Elon Musk will come and he will find the water. So we have to stop all of this nonsense. Okay, we have a great tool, which is artificial intelligence. It's a super tool. It has to stay there that way. Otherwise, people are being a bit, going into insanity. It's insane. It's like going to a movie and believing that what you're seeing on the screen is real. That it's the same thing.
So then let me trouble you more when I say that scientists like Nick Bostrom and Ray Kurzweil and others, they have already talked about the fact that future intelligence or artificial intelligence will be our last invention. And by that, what they mean, Dennis, is that uh, post that, because that will be such a high exponential intelligence than
Of
us,
course.
that
Yes.
we cannot come close to it. And that means that we will let it explore, in do inventions, discoveries by itself. What
Sure.
do you think about it?
Well, I would take him direct to see a psychiatrist. I don't care who they. I don't care who they are. I mean, these are people living in a dream. You have half of the planet, half of this planet does not have access to computers, to internet. You have many people don't have electricity, and you're talking about artificial intelligence relies on machines. These machines rely on electricity. And in case these people didn't notice, there's a huge energy problem on this planet. So I don't see how this in artificial intelligence is going to replace 7 billion people, especially doing what? What innovation? Sometimes I do podcasts with people in Africa, like Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon. They say, what are you talking about? It takes us 15 minutes to go get water in the morning. And sometimes it takes my family 2 hours to go get water and come back. And in South Africa, I did a podcast. I said, stop joking. We had to walk kilometers to get to this internet point to listen to your podcast. So what are you talking about? There's no, in my village, there's no internet, and we have hardly electricity. So how is this artificial intelligence innovate what? Innovate for rich countries, for rich people that live. At one point, we have to realize that there's 7 billion people on this planet, and that this winter, people are not going to eat because things are going on this planet. They're not going to get wheat, and they're going to starve to death. And at the same time, you have this guy saying, you know what? Don't worry, because I am coming with this super artificial intelligence, super thing that's going to help you. And the guy says, what does it work on? Electricity, but I don't have electricity. Well, we're going to come with solar panels. Well, solar panels don't work here because it's a desert and we have sandstorms. It'll destroy it. We'll come with Elon Musk satellite and you'll have it on your mobile, but I don't have a mobile phone and I don't, we'll have electricity, but I don't have electricity. So are you crazy? So maybe the only use you can give me is maybe I'll eat you, or maybe I'll cut you to pieces and eat you. It's ridiculous. It's not taking reality. In the United States, there's 1.5 million people that don't have electricity or water. You have tens of thousands of people living in the street. What artificial intelligence is for companies, big tech to power social media, for corporations to solve big supply chain problems, for smaller companies, but it's not going to innovate. You can't innovate with the past. Artificial intelligence only knows what exists. Then there comes creativity. So where did Mozart, how do you create Mozart? How are you going to be Mozart? You're going to be Mozart with artificial intelligence? Sure, you can imitate it. You can take a music score and continue it, but Mozart invented the style. It's ridiculous. It comes from people living in an artificial life that are not living in reality. The reality is artificial intelligence is a tool to be used in corporations, like a scientific calculator, has nothing to do. You can do some nice creativity, computer-driven things, but you're not going to replace the super creativity we have because we don't know where it comes from. Because to be creative, you have to have consciousness, and we don't know where that comes from too. And how do you see this person coming into a bar, a jazz player, and all of a sudden he plays this music, and you say, wow, it moves me. But it's not the notes. It's not the notes. It's the way he's playing. It's the way he touches. It's the way his attitude, the way he's looking at the people, the way he smiles or he doesn't smile. We have to get out of this artificial world. And I don't live in it because I've always worked for corporations with hard technology. If I ever told this to a manager, he'd kick me out of the company.
That's a great answer, Dennis. Something that contrasts to it, which I've heard in many of the podcasts that I've done. But let me then ask you, then, of course, it is a tool still, but then what about Go, which defeated the best of the human minds fairly, squarely in the chess games, and then even in the Go games? So, isn't it that
No.
that's also created by a human? That's also created by human.
Because I'm a chess player. Okay, I've played chess all my life, and I'm around 2,000 ELO, which is average these days.
Wow.
Let's say I'm a good chess player. Okay, I know chess, and I know chess engines, and I've taken chess engines apart. I've got an open source code. I've analyzed. There is no intelligence at all. You don't need artificial intelligence. Chess engines can beat anyone on a mobile telephone, even the best champions in the world, for another reason that's in chapter 3 of Artificial Intelligence by Example, my second edition. In chapter 3, because I took chess courses with an international chess master, and I said, I'm writing this book. Let's take a situation that no champion can solve. So we took a game that both players were playing, and we got to this position where you needed 30 parameters to solve the problem. 30 parameters. You need to calculate the space for the pawns, how much space there was for the rooks, the bishops, how many bishops, the position, the squares, the thing. Are the bishops on the white squares, the black squares? That's 30 parameters. That's too much for a human being, okay? But it doesn't take artificial intelligence to calculate those parameters. Okay, it's like saying my scientific calculator can do better than me, so it's, wow, what do you think of that? It's nothing. It's just a pack of calculations. So a chess engine is based on generating a lot of combinations with trees, and then the main power is evaluation. It's taking these parameters and calculating the number of squares, the number of pieces. It's pure mathematics. There is absolutely no intelligence in there. Nothing at all. Nothing. So sure, Google did a fantastic job between mixing machine learning and deep learning, and so what? I mean, sure. I have a scientific calculator that can write functions faster than I can. Wow. So what? It's a tool. I'm glad they found that tool. We have to stop saying, oh, it's so wonderful. No, it's just because we have an inferiority complex, because as soon as a machine can do as good as something like we can, say, oh, it has to be very intelligent. No, it isn't, because we're not doing intelligent things. We just have to admit that most of what we're doing is not very intelligent, so it's pretty easy to replace.
Right. Basically, how I deciphered your critique about this is that, let's say in a chess game, if somebody knows or can memorize in their head the next 1,000 moves, then that somebody can be a winner, and I can be a loser because I have not calculated those moves faster than that individual. And
you're not far from the truth. To be an excellent chess player today, you have to know the openings. You have to specialize on a certain number of openings, and you have to have studied all the possibilities. You can't do 1,000, but you can all the possibilities of maybe the 12 first moves of your opening, so that you know that from the start you know where you're going. But as soon as you reach the middle game, then here comes some calculation, and in the end games it's just pure mathematics. So, and there's no such thing as going 1,000 moves. Maybe a good chess engine can go 40, 45 moves. And a good chess player can do about 10, 12, 15, because he's learned all the possibilities. I know a few openings that I've played for maybe 20 years. So I know everything, maybe up to 20 moves, because I've done all the good ones. And as soon as someone doesn't do the good move, I can identify why. So it's just, we're talking about mathematical tools, and we have to, there's no intelligence in there. We have to be modest because we're not very intelligent.
Right.
That's what we have to admit.
That's absolutely right.
If we were very intelligent, the world wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be fighting climate change for our lives. There wouldn't be so many wars. If we were so smart, we would be able to make a consensus. We would have the super people that could say, hey, that's not worth it. Let's agree on this. Let me give you my resources, you give me mine. No, we can't solve a conflict because there are too many parameters. It's like exactly a chess evaluation. We don't have the possibility to face all these parameters because we were not built for that. We were built to live in little tribes 10,000 years ago, and it's gone too fast. You can't have a species evolve in 10,000 years. So we haven't evolved. We can't go beyond a small number of people, and we can control maybe a village, a city. A nation is already too complex, and multi-nation is way beyond the capacity of human beings to adapt to consensus. That's why we get very frustrated and we fight each other.
Great that you brought this topic. My next question to you is, what about the current war going on between Russia and Ukraine? The question is not, about the war. I'm pretty sure you have your opinion about it, but the kind of satellite help that Elon Musk has, offered to Ukraine for their support. What do you think about it when big tech players start supporting one side? And I'm not saying who is wrong, who is right, but doesn't that sound like a little unfair when everybody then starts supporting one side, and then one side is completely sanctioned and they do not have the kind of technology that perhaps Elon Musk, US, other Western countries would have? What is your opinion of that?
Okay, let's first say that everyone on this planet agrees, on any side, that human suffering is terrible. Okay, we have to say that. Now, we have to say that wars are very technological. Okay, so there are different. I've studied this war in and out because maybe I didn't tell you, but I was born in NATO. I was born in Berlin. My father was a lawyer for NATO, so I know NATO in and out until I was a teenager. My father fought in the Second World War. I was brought up in NATO. I did NATO exercises when I was a teenager. I know NATO in and out. So, and I know military strategy pretty well because my father was interested in that, and I played chess, and I was very interested in all it. So I've studied this war and there are many perspectives. So there's a human perspective, which is a tragedy. Okay. Then we have the technology. Now you speak about technology and you say, okay, so Elon Musk comes with a satellite. So let's speak as realists. Let's forget about Russia and Ukraine. We're at West Point. We're at West Point, or we're in India speaking to an Indian general, or we're somewhere speaking just military. We don't know the people. We are given the situation of both sides. We're given the situation of both sides, and we don't know who is opposing here, and we don't know it's Elon Musk. We just have, it's an exercise for students, okay? So you have a satellite, okay? So let's speak about this specific thing. You have a satellite, and this satellite will study the moves of one side, whatever side, and it will tell the other side where it is. Okay, so that's information. But the other side has satellites too. Okay, in this board, both sides have satellites. So this cancels each other. And then on the ground, okay, you're on the ground and you're facing one of the biggest armies in the world that's fought in Syria, fought in Libya, that's fighting in Mali. It's fighting everywhere. You're talking to a professional army. These people are professional soldiers. They fight, they die, they kill. These are machines. These are machines that you put on a battlefield. And then on the other side, you have some professionals, but you have a lot of people like you and me. that you just put a gun in their hands. So the satellite is not going to help them. So my what I always learned in my family that fought World War I and World War II, there's only one solution, is diplomacy. That is the only solution, is diplomacy. Correct. There's no other solution. You can't. In fact, this is Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu, the Chinese strategist. Sun Tzu is probably a mixture of several Chinese generals under the name Sun Tzu. But this book is so good, and it's still real. And it says the goal of war is diplomacy. Right. So I don't think technology is going to change anything when you are facing a country that is going to take this territory called Donbass. I think, if you want my prediction, they're going to take Donbass, and they're going to stay there. And they're not going to leave, okay? And you can send all the weapons in the world and all the satellites and Elon Musk, anything you want. I don't see Russians leaving. Now, I don't want Ukrainians suffering. Right. So if you want the depth of my thought, I was thinking of a federation. Like Germany fought a lot between France. We have a history here in France of so many wars between us, religion wars between. We've killed, for 1,000 years in Europe, we've been killing each other. So we're about the most destructive continent in the world, and we just have another example going on here, because this has been going on since Peter the Tsar in 1725. He was already doing a canal between the Caspian Sea and the Azov Sea through rivers, so the Volga and the Don. You have the 1854 Crimea War with the Ottomans and all that. It goes back to my conversation in the early. We don't have the intelligence. Human beings are not ready at all to manage so much. It's too much. We were good when we were in tribes or in small cities, but we don't know how to, no one knows how to manage the situation. I'm sorry, but these satellites will make no difference. So we can't say that one side is favoring. You can send all the weapons in the world to people. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to stop people that are fighting each other. It's like two people fighting in the street, and the policemen come, but they still want to fight each other. And as soon as they get out of the police station, they go back to fighting each other.
Again. Yes.
So what I see, the issue, the only way out of this is diplomacy. If I want to cite someone, if the readers want to read, this is a personal opinion. You don't have to. The most enlightened person for me today is the foreign minister of India.
Yes,
Jaishankar. Jaishankar.
He said the same thing, exactly.
For me, he represents the future.
Absolutely, right.
Jaishankar represents the future because he was an ambassador in so many countries. He's a specialist in foreign. He wrote a book called The Indian Way, which I have read recently, and explains the path to diplomacy. He says, we do have conflicts. We Indians have conflicts with Pakistan. We have issues with, we have problems with China. But diplomacy, please. Let's talk. Let's stop these wars. Let's stop the war and let's talk. Let's get to the negotiation table. So I think that maybe the West is entrenched in our 1,000-year way of solving problems through wars. And I think that a person like Jaishankar is the future. He is the human of the future. If everyone will listen to him, there would be no wars. Because what he says, these problems should be solved between Russia and Europe and NATO in 1991 when Soviet Union collapsed. And we should have been working on diplomacy since then and doing things, diplomacy, making threads between people, doing things. I believe, I'm a son of army people that believed in diplomacy.
That's absolutely fantastic point. Believe me, I believe that as well, and that's the reason
So
why
you know Jai
yes, yes.
Shankar then.
I listen to him so much. I have so much immense respect for him, Dennis, because of the fact that he has brought so much respect back to India by his views, by his diplomacy, and the fact that he says that no war in Europe or anywhere in the world has gained anything for anybody even till today.
And everyone likes him. You can have
Yes,
any
yes,
country that comes, UK,
yes,
United States, China,
yes,
anyone that talks to him
right,
always
yes,
finds, hey, he has something interesting to say.
yes, yes,
I think he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. I read The Indian Way, and
yes,
it's the future. It's the future of
it's fantastic.
humanity is
Yes,
to always try years and years before a conflict erupts, years before, to see the
right,
little tensions and to solve them through diplomacy, to make
right,
efforts. So
yes,
that, I would say my opinion is his, and he doesn't care about the satellites and all that. He just, what he says is just stop fighting and stop talking and start agreeing on sharing the resources. And in the end, it will finish that way, because you
right,
can't fight 100 years today. So in
right.
the end, they will have to live together.
Who is getting richer from this war? All the time, America, because look at the stocks of the 7 or 8 companies that provides these weapons to Ukraine and through Poland and other places, and it is Northman Group, it is Lockheed Martin, yeah, are getting richer. So imagine if NATO today wants to get close to Russian border, like it tried to go to Poland. Poland says no, and then it is trying to go into NATO, into Ukraine. Ukraine is trying to get NATO in. But what if somebody from Russia says that tomorrow they want to go and sit near the Mexican border, uh, on the American-Mexican border? Would would America be fine with it? Would NATO be fine with it? Because
So
what from if you listen to their perspective, what is happening is that it is trying to destabilize Russia. So Soviet Union has already been broken, right? And now the only region left for them is Russia. What they are in fear is, if this goes on like it has happened, like I still remember Biden's interview, where 1998 interview, where he said the Baltic states should not join NATO because it is going to destabilize the Russian peninsula and all that. What is your opinion whether what Russia is thinking wrong or right regarding NATO?
okay, so I'll talk to you in Jaishankar way. Okay, I'll use his methodology. First of all, I was born in NATO, so I know what NATO is, and
Yes.
NATO is a solid organization with, I mean, excellent technology, excellent cooperation between the countries that are in it. And since we humans are not able to agree with each other, this is a solid organization, North Atlantic Treaty Organization,
Right.
that prevented wars between Soviet Union and Europe for a very long time. So now I'll speak like Jaishankar. In 1991 and several years after, Russia was invited to join NATO. That's maybe something you could look into. There was talk about Russia coming into NATO. And that's where the place it should have been. Because if in 1991 Russia had joined NATO, we would be, what's nice about NATO is cooperation. That means that Russia could have been in NATO, which was, you can look it up in history, it was an option. And at that point, we would be sharing technology instead of trying to develop technology individually, and there would be cooperation. So NATO is not the issue. The issue is cooperating with adversarial countries. Like Turkey and Russia are adversaries. But Turkey and Russia agree in Syria. They agree in Libya. They don't fight each other. They find solutions. Sometimes they shoot down a plane, but they catch it up. So we have to develop an adversarial collaboration with Russia. That in the end, maybe not with the present government or another government, but we have to develop an adversarial collaboration with saying, Yes, we don't agree on many issues. We have NATO. NATO can be anywhere, but then you have to be not part of it or in it, but we have to agree. We have to find concessions. We have to make concessions. Maybe Sweden will feel more comfortable being in NATO, but maybe at the same time there should be discussions with Russia saying, listen, we are going to give you guarantees. We'll tell you where the weapons are. We want to de-escalate the weaponry in this region. We don't want nuclear submarines. We don't want nuclear missiles in Kaliningrad, which they're installing right now. So we need people like Jaishankar in each country. So NATO's not the problem. And of course, you have the American corporations, but you have the French corporations, Dassault, Boeing. They're making a lot of money. And you have Germany now selling weapons. Now, weapons, if they're not used, it develops technology in every field. The problem is when you use them. So as a deterrent, weapons are okay. But if you use them, you're making a mistake because we can't use weapons anymore. These weapons are becoming so sophisticated. I think war, as we see it today, is reaching an end between these major nations. How can you... What happens if Russia uses one of its tsunami missiles?
Missiles on UK,
Tsunami missiles, that they can launch one under the sea in the Black Sea, which will explode undersea and create a tsunami. Or they haven't used EMP's electromagnetic pulse yet, where you explode a missile 30 kilometers over. They're not using these weapons. So I think, and there's hype on both sides. Like what you're citing here is this person on Russian TV saying, you know what, in 2 minutes we can wipe UK off the map. Of course, no one's going to do that. So on both sides, we're talking, it's so unfortunate for the civilians, but we're talking to children. We're talking, the maturity, there's this French biologist who said humanity has gone from a maturity of intelligence of 9 years old to 12 years old in a million years.
That's true.
We don't have the intelligence to manage these things. That's the main problem. Going back to the several leitmotifs in this conversation, we have too much weapons for our intelligence, and we shouldn't be fighting. We should be talking. So I don't know. Someone at one point is going to have to stop. Someone's have to stop because these weapons make no sense. You can't bomb the UK. If you bomb UK, Moscow, these are children. Like, if you do that, I'm going to beat you up, and if you do that, I'll send this missile, and I'm going to send these javelins to Ukraine, and you'll see what I'm going to do you. I'm going to give you the black eye, and the Russians say, yeah, but you see what I do. But in the meantime, only civilians are paying for this. The only people that are paying the price. So, and in fact, no one's making money, because you think that these industries are making money in the United States, but the inflation, these are small amounts compared to the US GNP. We're talking about 25 to 30 trillion dollars. That's nothing compared to the gross national products. So when the gas prices go up and the wheat is missing, and I believe in diplomacy. I'm sorry to say it, but the only solution here is for someone to. But the problem is, for the moment, it's like in a fight between two people. They're so angry you can't talk to them. So I think it'll take a few more months, and things. Because there are a lot of smart people also. Like, for example, I can give you good signs. For example, in Germany, they accepted to pay the oil in rubles. So many companies are now paying in ruble. At one point, Russia is maybe going to say, okay, if you do that, maybe I'll just stop at Donbass. And once I have that, maybe we'll calm down a bit. But then you have to take some sanctions off. In the end, human beings, they do things wrong, but then they correct them. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. There would only be us, one person left on the planet. We would have killed all of each other. So at one point, there's going to be intelligence because you have Turkey coming in. But for the moment, everyone is a bit irritated. So I'm speaking like Jaishankar. Everyone's a bit irritated, and we're going to have to wait a few months. And I think that things will settle down with the pressure of hunger in September, October, November, when Egypt needs wheat. I'm pretty optimistic that it will stop. The tragedy is the civilians. They're paying the price for the errors of people that can't talk to each other.
Exactly. I mean, how can Zelensky and the whole of the world cannot put pressure on Zelensky and Putin to sit down and talk about it? How difficult is that? I mean,
it goes back to our whole conversation. We've had the same conversation since the beginning. Too many parameters.
Right.
There are much too many parameters for us human beings. For example, we say embargo on Russian oil. But what about sapphire sulfates? Sapphire sulfates are necessary in computers, and Russia produces nearly half of them in the world.
Yeah.
What about the nickel? What about so many things? It's too complicated. We also, beyond the tragedy of civilians, we have to be modest and we have to forgive these governments because it's too complex for them. And then their emotions take over. And then if you send a missile, I'll send a missile, and you send a missile, I'll send a missile, you send a missile. At one point, there's not going to be many people sending missiles, so they're going to have to talk anyway. And who will pay? The civilians. I can tell you a little story. At the beginning of the war, I play the piano, and at the beginning of the war, I was extremely shocked by the picture of a soldier face down, dead, face down in the snow.
Oh my God.
And in Geneva Conventions, you're not allowed to make these kind of pictures. And I didn't know if this soldier was a Ukrainian or if this soldier was a Russian. And I wrote a little short story where a mother is coming and walking in the night, and she finds her son. And we don't know if this son is Russian or Ukrainian. She's crying, she's screaming. We don't know if he's Russian or Ukrainian, but he's just a child. He's 25 years old or 20 years.
Oh.
Why is he dead? And then you have some other soldiers come along and they say, don't worry, mother, we're all dead. You're already dead also. We're already in another world and we're dead. And see, he's a Ukrainian soldier, I'm Russian, but we're all dead. So, and I wrote up some music that went with it, and I got everyone crying in my family because the tragedy is there that human beings, for the moment in this century, still don't have the amount of intelligence it takes to manage a lot of parameters. So they are always using a very few parameters. This is my territory, this is your territory, this is the interest of the US, this is the interest of China. It's too complicated. If you're an observer, you can read any article you want in the world, there's always factors missing. You can read Chinese newspapers, you can read Russian newspapers, there's always some factors missing. They're not taking into account the other parameters of the other people.
Right.
So, of course, Russia tried to go to Cuba, to answer your question about Mexico, but why would Russia do that? It's too far away. There's no. It's too complex even for us to understand. Why didn't Russia do it? How can we manage? It's so difficult getting up in the morning, getting dressed, trying to find a job, get some money, get a family, agree with your wife or your companion if you live with 2 men, 2 women, whatever you want, whatever going on. As soon as you have 2 people together, it's already a huge problem for in a family. And it's already a huge problem for ourselves. Even when we're alone, we're saying, oh, am I good? Am I bad? Maybe I'm bad. Am I going to do? We don't even agree with ourselves. Am I sure I'm right? No, maybe I'm wrong. So we have to admit, and it goes back to everything I've been saying in this conversation from the beginning, we have to be a lot more humble. The technology is far too complex for our intelligence, and it's far too complex. And the situation in the world, global economy, is much too complex. And the only way out of this is diplomacy. Two people sitting down. Maybe if I were Jaishankar or Erdogan, I'd say, sit down and let's say we don't know the solution. I would start with, we do not know the solution.
Correct.
Russians, you are fighting, we don't know the solution. Because our mindset is wrong, and we have all these problems we don't know, and we're killing a lot of people because we don't know the answer. That's the problem of both sides. We don't know the answer. We don't know how to stop. And since we know how to stop, well, we continue killing people. No, we have to admit, I don't know the solution. If everyone just sat down in the world and say, we don't know, how can Russia feel comfortable? How can Ukraine feel comfortable? We don't know the solution because it's above. Levi-Strauss wrote a lot on this, and he says technology is always a bit ahead of humanity. Just imagine the first person who discovered that I could use a piece of stone to open the animal to eat, but I could also maybe kill someone with it. That's too much power. That's a long time ago. He could kill the animal to eat, but why would he kill someone? Because this weapon is too powerful. So as soon as the emotions come up, then he's going to kill someone with it. And that's how we got to today, because we didn't even develop the maturity with this little piece of stone to say, I'm not supposed to kill someone else. I'm just going to kill the animal to eat. And maybe if I'm smart enough, and I'm not going to kill animals to eat, because gorillas are vegetarians mostly, and they live. So why am I killing things to eat? So why am I using that except for to cut plants? So maybe we should be vegetarians and not. So if humanity had started like that 100,000 years ago, we wouldn't be here today. So each thing we invent, we don't master it. And we don't think about the ethics of it. We just go ahead because our emotions take over. So the whole podcast is about human beings learning to be humble, to understand that machines are machines and they're not humans, and that in the world it's too complex for us, and the only way is to sit down and admit it. And that's what the United Nations was created for after 1945, and that's why you have regulations like RGPD or GRPD for we need rules. And just listen to people like Jaishankar, and you get wisdom. Yes. And I think the wisdom will come, but it's too soon, because we're still in these emotions. Just look at social media, the way people talk to each other. You can look into every single LinkedIn post I've done since the beginning of LinkedIn, and every comment I always answer politely, even when a person says your post is nonsense. I had some recent posts where someone says everything you wrote is nonsense. I say, thank you for sharing another perception. And I have to think about it. I have to think about your other perception. And I agree with you that maybe in my post I wasn't clear enough on this point. And maybe you're right that this is not the ultimate technology, and there are other ways. It's called... it comes from another problem called cognitive dissonance. That is the main problem of human beings. They cannot manage cognitive dissonance. As soon as two things conflict, they can't find the third way. So someone writes me an insult in a post, as long as it's polite, I'm just saying your post, and I'm going to answer, and I'm going to live with this cognitive dissonance. And I'm going to answer, and in the end, 99% of the time, the person says, gee, thank you, Denis, and I agree with your part, and we reach a consensus.
Right.
Where the person doesn't agree with my technology, because he doesn't like artificial intelligence, but I agree that, yes, there is a limit to this artificial intelligence, and he is right, or she is right, to say it's dangerous and we have to be careful. Like 100,000 years ago with the killing people with stones. So he's right. People that say you're doing dangerous things, I say, yeah, you're right to say that, to remind us to be careful. I'm not going to say, yeah, you're ignorant and stuff like that. So We have to reach the level in any domain to be humble and consensus and live with cognitive dissonance. He doesn't agree with me, but what does he think? Maybe part of what he thinks could be added to what I think, and we could do something better together.
Great discussion. Just in one line, if you can answer this last question for me, just in one line, think about it. What is the meaning of life?
That goes back to my question. You can go to a church, you can go to a Hinduist temple, a Buddhist temple, you can go to, if you're an atheist, you can go into a forest, and you sit there and you think and think. And as long as you're asking yourself that question, you're humble. The answer is in yourself, and there are 7 billion answers to that. Each person has his meaning of his life or her life or she, her life, or whatever people want to be this day. Every person has his meaning of life. So no one can give you that answer. It's in yourself.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Dennis, for today's episode. I will reach out to you again for the round 3 based
Sure.
on your schedule. Yeah. Have a great day then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.